the most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield 2.
Thank you.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to episode 153 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Well, that went well, didn't it? Mark Fotheringham's charm offensive hit the defences of Reading and the Terriers slumped to a worrying 3-1 defeat. If this was an audition for the new manager, then many players have failed pretty badly and won't indeed be getting the role. Joining myself, Matt Shaw, to discuss the latest happenings in HD1 this week is a man who was hoping to gobble up 3 points, but we'll just have to make do with whatever's in the kitchen this time. A warm welcome back to the podcast to Phil Senior.
Evening, how are you doing?
Good, buddy. Joining him shortly is a man who was accused of being Sorba Thomas's dance partner on Twitter over the weekend, and that made me chuckle. Pozza will be with us momentarily. I think he's just in the kitchen making a snack as well. It's all about the snacks, isn't it, this week? And fresh from a first birthday party, I just hope that he was invited. It's Jonny Gillespie. How are we doing?
Tired, but yeah, can't wait for this.
Good. Yeah,
right,
I think we're all thrilled to be here, aren't we, after another defeat. But this episode, as always, is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. If you go to www.magicrockbrewing.com and fancy some goodness on there on the website, use the code AHTTC10 and you'll get 10% off, courtesy of our good selves. And I think it's still free delivery for any of us orders over around £45. Right, guys, so let's talk about the new man. Brady and Co have covered a lot of aspects of this on the preview show, so we won't go over too much ground, if you like. But we did have an unabridged 38-minute press conference whereby Mark Fotheringham said a lot of good things, I thought. But it was always going to be about what happened on the pitch, wasn't it? I think we're a bit long in the tooth now to listen to somebody ramble on about things and praise certain people in areas and say how good Huddersfield Town are, but it's what goes on the field, doesn't it, that matters. And what have you guys made of the introduction of Mark Fotheringham? Phil, you've not been on the podcast for, well, first one this season. So I think people will be interested to know, there's obviously some things that you can and can't say because you've got friends, haven't you, in good places. You've got lots of friends as Phil. What did you make of the managerial change and Mark Fotheringham so far?
Yeah, I think obviously in terms of with Scully, it was a difficult situation. You know, we've just been speaking before we came on, and you know, it never works well when you put a coach into a managerial position where he's made friendships, etc., with the players, and I think it kind of showed some of that. Some of the players, I don't think, from my point of view, didn't seem to have as much respect for him. And this is from the outset. I have no idea what's going on inside the club, but there were a couple of quite visual things on the fields from certain players where you read in between the lines that it probably didn't have their support. So it was always inevitable that it was going to end up leaving, and the results showed obviously that it wasn't good enough. So you can't really argue. An interesting introduction for the new manager. I think the interviews have been positive. I think it's very easy to say the right things when you first turn up to a club. Getting things wrong like the city and not the town don't quite help always, but it's a brand new place for him. I think it's a massive opportunity for him. He's got a very good background within football, being at Celtic and being in Germany from his coaching point of view. He's playing his trade there. He's obviously learnt a lot of things. He's coming into Huddersfield now, and I think he'll have his own way of playing. A week within the club is not enough for him to get what he wants over to the players. So, unfortunately, I think Saturday's maybe set him back a little bit. It was a poor performance, and like I say, he's got a lot on his plate. but the players are going to have to buy into it. He seems like someone who you will follow, the way that he speaks. So hopefully he's going to get the group behind him. They're going to have to. Some of those players are going to have to prove their worth. We were talking, Jonny, before, weren't we? You can't always like your manager. You know, there's going to be managers that you don't like, the managers that you do like. That's absolutely irrelevant because you're playing for a football club and you've got to play all day. You've got to work your hardest week in, week out. And you've got to put everything in onto the pitch on a Saturday. And that's irrelevant of the manager. But I think this guy, I think he looks like he's willing to give it a good go and hopefully it works.
Jonny, listen. That seems a popular phrase, doesn't it, at the start of each sentence from Mark Fotheringham. That's listen is the new Aithine, what Carlos Corberán used to say. He's got a fantastic death stare, hasn't he, Jonny? We saw that a couple of times in the interview, and we've seen the Braveheart one when he's in Germany. What's always a good thing to have as a manager, Jonny, is when people know you're serious, there's a look, isn't there? There's that 1,000-yard stare, the old Scarborough warning. If you like, a Mark Fotheringham's got this in spades. I think I'd be terrified if I was Oggy, if you ask him a tough question and he flashes that look. But so what have you made to him? And do you think, going on about this death stare of his, do you think this is the reason why Mark Fotheringham is here, is to add more discipline to this squad? And we'll talk about certain disciplines as well as we get into the game, because there were certain things that we need to discuss, I think. But let me know what you've made of Fotheringham, the charm offensive, and I like what I went on Stephen Chicken's podcast as a sub because Dave was ill, but I'm quite excited by what Mark Fotheringham has said. But like I say, we need to see the product on the pitch, don't we? But what have you made about him, or made of him?
Going back to your question, is it one of the reasons why I might have got the job? I think to a certain extent. Yeah, not that simply, but I think we kind of said before we knew who was coming in, what we wanted was someone that had the ability to shake things up. That's not to say that previous manager Schofield wasn't that character, but I think there were a few players in there who weren't at 100%. Be that bit of hangover, be that bit of attitude, be that just generally things have changed from last season to this season. I think they need someone who's going to come in, shake things up, but kind of not take any crap, not take people not put 110% in. And I think looking at Mark's two interviews and how he approaches his own life, how he talks about his family, the tests he's put them through, his approach to his career and his football, and simply the way he looks at you down the camera. I don't think what I expected from Reading, and to kind of put this into context of the game, we might have made mistakes, we might not have won the game, but I expected running stats to be through the roof, efforts, which is effectively effort stats, to be through the roof, because of the type of manager I thought he is and think he is not someone you'd want to go in at half-time or 90 minutes and sit on the coach on the way home knowing that you've not put your effort in. You might have put a ball astray, you might have missed a chance, you might have made a mistake at the back, but he strikes type manager that if you don't put effort in, he will come down like a ton of bricks. That's what I think he's like. So for me, it was kind of worrying that I don't think the effort was necessary there in the Reading game. But I guess we'll come on to that. But going back to why he's got the job, I think that's the main one. Bromby in his interview on Radio Leeds kind of talks around wanting a manager who has worked alongside big names. Not just big names, but big names who've gone and achieved things in football. And I think he made a massive point of that in his interviews about the manager he's worked with, bits of information he's taken from them, kind of techniques and such. But obviously he's made a massive point of the fact that he's his own man. He backs himself clearly. I think that's another reason why he's probably got the job as well. But yeah, I was impressed. I liked him as an individual. I liked his values. I liked how he talks about football. And for me, we need someone who's got that a bit about them and is, a bit of a drill sergeant who's going to do that. So it looked good. It looked good on paper, but as Phil said, it's really easy to come on and say things. You've been through an interview process. You know what the club's looking for. It's quite easy to kind of say the right things. We've got to see it. We've got to see it in practice. I don't judge Reading against how Mark Fotheringham will do Huddersfield. It is early doors. He has only had kind of his 5 sessions in 3 days that he talks about. It is early. there's a few little question marks just because, again, it's not that kind of, it wasn't a new manager game. Like I say, you're not necessarily going to go and win the game, but you at least want to see effort from every single player. And I think a few players still need to look at themselves after that game and think, what do they want? Do they want a career at Huddersfield Town at this level? Or their career is going to spiral like other players have, and they'll find themselves dropping down the leagues and not making it. Now, we'll see what comes from Tuesday and Saturday. We've got 10 games now before the World Cup, and hopefully we'll see an improvement. But rated on his interviews, I think I can see why the club have gone for him. I see why the club liked him. He's just got now to kind of get the results to back up that confidence that he's got in himself and the confidence that he had put in me through his press conferences. So yeah, I think I can see why the club went for him. And initially, on face value, I do like him.
What's always really important is nutrition. So the new managers come in. There's a new nutrition. Obviously, nutrition's key, but there's going to be some new. Mark Fotheringham's come over and brought the German method back with him that the club are very aware of, and a couple of little things that have come out that we hear things is that there's a new training regime, and the new training regime is a little bit crazy compared to maybe what they've had before. I think they start at around about 8, half 8, and there's things in there such as robustness training and all sorts of things that we don't really quite know what that means. But it's really interesting. But I think the question that everyone wants to know, Poz, is what have you got for tea?
Look how hot it looks. Look at it, you can see.
Steam's coming up, isn't it? For anyone who's listening to this, I apologise, but Poz has just come in.
Burning his insides.
Pasta or something.
Sweet and sour pork, Chinese balls, lads, and rice.
Nice.
So, yeah, very nice, very nice. I think you're right. I think as well. I've seen the little thing that went round in regards to the schedule and stuff like that, and I'm all for it. I think working out on training ground can only be a good thing. There's been reports of some players at Town not sort of all pulling in the same direction, and I remember when a certain other manager took over that I don't dare talk about because everybody goes mental for it. It kind of weeded out some of the not so committed players, shall we say? So if a new training regime comes in and it's not as easy maybe as some like it, then you can quite easily weed those players out again and get a real squad together that can wants to put the effort in on the training ground to then transpire to winning football matches on a Saturday. So all for it. I think the only thing you've got to be a little bit careful is obviously with injuries. We haven't got a massive squad, so if they are overtraining, likely to be muddled and not picked up. So it's just finding that fine balance between training enough to get the best out of the players without training too much to make it have an adverse effect long term. We've got a lot of young players, some probably not used to a full-time training regime, and then this comes in and it's potentially more than they've ever been used to. So he's got a task on keeping people happy in that new regime and also keeping people fit, I think. But yeah, I'm all for it. Me, I like that sort of stuff. It's it's moved on from the days of coming in at 10 and going home at 2. I think as football now. So the more time that they're down at the training ground, the better for me.
It looks like you're about to be attacked by salad fingers. Just there's a plant or something just in the corner of the screen. It just looks like it's like salad fingers talking about his rusty spoons. I think one thing so we've got to say thanks to Wales for Pat Jones being injured and coming back from international duty injured. That's always a really frustrating thing that's happened.
Quite a bit to answer, hasn't it, the Welsh national team? We've affected Sorba's ongoing career and now injured Pat Jones. So
I know, thanks Wales. So he's out. Tino Anjorin's ill, so he was out. So the last question, I think, before we go on to the Reading game, I think we'll throw this to you, Phil. It's from Doug Barnett. So I've asked for a couple of questions online, and what we'll do is we'll visit those questions at the end because it's probably easier to do so and do them all in a bulk, although we may cover some of them during the game. And it's from Doug Barnett, who has been on this fair show once upon a time. And it's put, was Mark Fotheringham impressive as some thought in his initial interview, or did he simply come across as an overconfident, old-school disciplinarian? This group responded to a studious CC, Carlos Cobran. Are they likely to respond to Mark Fotheringham? This goes wrong, and we are down.
I don't think he did. I think he came across as someone who really enjoys being involved in football. Yeah, for me, it wasn't like that. I think all this death stare crap, it's just a load of rubbish. Is that I don't
mate,
buy
wait
into
till
any
he
of this
looks at
kind
you.
of stuff. Yeah, well, yeah, but bloody hell, anyone can look at anyone with a bit of a stare, can't they, and stuff. But I just think he's probably a little bit more intense. I think he's probably an intense person who like I say, has turned up to a club and knows there's a massive challenge. And going back to the training schedule, maybe that's going to weed some of these people out if you're not going to follow him and you're not going to stick to this kind of the principle. I like it. They train at the same time as what you have your match nights, or if you're day. So if you're playing on a Saturday, 3:00 trainings, etc. If you've got a couple of night matches coming forward, you'll probably train at 7:00. I like it. I think it's good. I don't know if I can't remember which manager you might have been talking about, but I remember when there were players wanting to live away from Huddersfield and they wouldn't travel over and they didn't like to stay over. I think it's important nowadays. I think the training is just as important as your games now. So no, I don't think he's he's been chosen for that. I think he will have been very impressive when he was first met with Bromby, and I think that's probably won him over. And like I say, it's time will tell, but I think he'll be a great addition.
Cool. So the rehearsing over, and now it's time for the big audition. I'm afraid for me, it fell very flat. Town reverting to a 4-4-2, which was shown early in the season really to be unsuitable for what we have. John Russell in a 2 in a stretch midfield, again struggling. It feels like to me we've maybe gone back to July and August a little bit, and the new coaches, and obviously the new coach Mark Fotheringham is finding similar things out to what Danny Schofield did maybe, and that first game. You kind of have to question maybe a little bit the guidance that he might have of the assistants maybe to do so, or maybe with the injuries and the illnesses he's maybe not had much choice with what he's done. But there's a couple of question marks I think over the starting lineup where it's easy to say in hindsight obviously, but you look at Turton, Nakayama, Radoni and Dwayne Holmes as your wide players, and there's absolutely zero width in that at all. Nobody's going to go down the outside and put a cross in out of all four of them, which maybe inhibited us and maybe led to us playing a very restrictive way through the middle of the pitch against a Reading side who were playing with a back three and a midfield three. I think the idea really, Jonny, was to stay quite tight. They were quite happy to cede territory, work they up to halfway and just drop back in. And we've heard Mark Fotheringham talk about the spaces between the lines, etc. already, and it's about sort of cutting off the passing lanes and remaining in kind of a deep lower block shape. And okay, it wasn't amazing to watch, was it? But it was good from a defensive point of view until the first goal. What did you make of the shape and the lineup in particular?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because we know he was at the Cardiff game, and we played there a 4-2-3-1, which he's a bit more of a, he's like the German formation. So I'm typecasting there, but I thought he might have gone with that. He also dropped Kamara, which he does explain in his interview, but initially on the face of it, he thought it was harsh. I thought he had a great game. I thought he worked well with Kasumu, and I kind of like them as a pairing. So I thought that I expected to see that going into the Reading game. I thought we kind of maybe got a little bit in midfield, which has been just a vacuum of quality so far this season. And it was a strange one because you've got a midfield two. When the lineup was first announced, I was assuming it was a 4-2-3-1, as you'd expect players playing where they should be, apart from Thomas being on the left. Then, like I say, when the game develops, you can see it's more of a 4-4-2, which we know doesn't really work. The same problems were there that were when Schofield kind of played that. It's the same players, of course, same problems are going to be there. So it's a bit of a shame. His rationale for dropping Kamara was not doing too much too soon and letting players have a little bit of time to recover, which I'd get if it was a case of Saturday, Tuesday. But we've just had an international break, so I don't see why he can't play either side of a 2-week window, really. So, yeah, bit of a shame. I think from man of match performance to being kind of left on the bench for the player's perspective, he's probably a bit disappointed in that. But I don't think it was necessarily the right team. I certainly don't think it was the right shape. In regards to people pointing that out to him, fair comment. People might have said that to him. But equally, I suspect he's probably watched the matches, from when certainly this season. And again, we can all see that you can't play Russell as part of a midfield two. It doesn't really work. So again, it's asking the question, why can't someone who's a professional manager see that? So that question wasn't posed to him. He might have a reason why. Again, we can't ask him that on this. But yeah, interesting. I think that's going back to, there's only one game, but those are a couple of question marks I alluded to earlier. Was the problems that we've already ironed them out. We ironed them out against Cardiff. We've moved on. We've changed the formation. We've changed personnel in that midfield, and we've kind of reverted back to it. If Kamara's fit, he's got to play for me after that Cardiff game. So strange.
Phil, I think we'll kick this off into a discussion between you two. I think this should be interesting. So the goals Reading scored were shite, to be honest, weren't they? There's no other way to say it. Corner comes in, the centre-back, Redoni's marking the centre. And this is what I meant earlier about discipline coming in, when we're talking about Mark Fotheringham and discipline and organisation. Town looks really organised against Cardiff. And it's still the same coaches, Chicho and Paul Harsley are still there. But I found it odd how maybe Redoni's not bad in the air from an attacking sense, actually. But I found it a little bit strange how Redoni was with a centre-back and Jordan Rhodes was on the post. I just couldn't wrap my head around that because Jordan's a really useful defensive weapon, isn't he? He's experienced, he reads situations really well, and he's actually really good in the box, isn't he, with clearing. Redoni, less so, but to have Rhodes on the post and then Redoni there, I found that really, really bizarre. The second one, own goal by Lee Nichols, I think that's probably as much bad luck as embarrassing, to be honest. But the attempt to get to the crosser by John Russell wasn't great, really. He's let him get that crossing too easily. And the third goal, I don't even know where to start. Take it away, lads. I don't know where you'd start either, but the first. Talk maybe about the first goal. I don't know if you're muted, Phil, but maybe the
Pause,
first.
you go first. Pause. I'll let you go first, mate.
First, maybe the marking first. Pause, but. I don't know how you speak because Reading actually have the lowest expected goals in the league, in the Championship. It's even lower than us with 0.9 goals per game, and they've put 3 past us, and all 3 were just shite. Weren't they? Really avoidable goals, and it was doing my head in. I wasn't the happiest guy. Go on.
I mean, if you lose 3-0 and there's 3 great goals or well worked goals, you come away and you think, well, do you know what? At least there were decent goals to concede, but. As you say, the 3 that we let in were all shambolic, really, which weren't great given the big speech that we had about having a decent scaffolding and all that sort of stuff, before going into that game. And I think when you're struggling side, the first thing that you do is, before you start trying to win games, is stop losing them. And that defence should be the first thing that you look to work on and then build from there. I think one of the big things that we had last season, where we were so strong defensively, you always had a chance. We were strong defensively, we were good at set pieces, and a lot of games that's basically how we won. We didn't let many in, and this season overall, House of Cards has collapsed, and we've conceded some awful goals. And on Saturday, it's kind of summed that up in one match, as you say. Reading 0.9 XG goals, and then they've put 3 past us. So he's going to be probably really disappointing with that. And I think that was probably the thing that I was most disappointed in, the fact that he'd made such a big thing about this. We're going to build from the back and scaffolding and all that sort of business. That to concede those sorts of goals were really disappointing. And I think probably Redoni marking their centre half were just probably gone height for height, maybe. So that's probably the reason in there. Again, I agree with you though, Matt. If Jordan Rhodes is in there, he picks someone up who's likely to win an header, don't stand on post. Swap them 2 over. I think when ball comes in, Redoni's not even looking at it. He's kind of focusing on his man more than where the ball is obviously going well. Second one, I'm sure we've all been there. As a centre half, I've been there where I've tried to clear a ball that's come across a goal, and you just stopping it reaching the centre forward. And I'm sure it's happened to Phil where it's cannoned off back of him and ended up in his own goal as well. And it is you know, you can forgive that, but we, like you say, Matt, that cross shouldn't be coming in the first place. That shouldn't have happened because the cross shouldn't have been there. And then the third one, well, like you say, if you just put some circus music over highlights on that, you know, it had gone down well. There's a terrible loss of possession, and then indecisiveness. No one goes to the man. They both kind of track the runner, but no one really tracks him that well because he manages to get through. And then there's a little poke past Lee Nichols, and you know, could have quite easily been another own goal if you know, their fellow obviously is on a goal bonus, so he charges him and smashes it in from a yard out. And when you're conceding 3 goals like that, you know, you've got to score 4 to win, and we don't really look like scoring 1 or 2.
Last year we did, didn't we? We conceded 3 shockers last year.
Down there, but last year we got the look, and we look, we just, you know, have a good
we did,
goal.
didn't we? We did. Yeah.
But yeah, I think as a first game, when you've come out and give such a, I would just got the tail end of what Jonny was saying whilst I was dishing my tea up in regards to, you know, the way that he'd spoken and everything. I think I would fully agree in what he said. I went into, you know, not really having an opinion on him, to thinking, do you know what, yeah, this lad's got something about him. And I think the first game away from home, the last thing that you need to do is give away such shite goals. You know, let's be honest. Let's go and just defend. Even if you just go and defend and get a 0-0, it's something to build on. Whereas now he's gone and he's conceded 3. It's been not a great performance. Defence has been all over the shop, and instantly people are asking questions, which is probably wrong because he's been there 5 days. So, you know, but it's just how football is these days. You need to go in, and people need to come away from that match and say, do you know what? I can tell we've got a new manager. You know, people will talk back to when Wagner first joined in those first few games. Yeah, we didn't win, but you came out and you were like, wow, that was totally different to what I've been watching. Whereas on Saturday, for me, it were basically exactly the same, if not worse. So
Wagner got 2 weeks in Portugal, didn't he, with them before?
Yeah,
so we'll hopefully see that. But Phil, is there a confidence thing? Is there a confidence issue, I should say?
I think so. It's always the same, isn't it? When you're down towards the bottom of the league and you're trying to get a win, it's things just don't go right for you, do they? You know, the first goal, it's a static header. He's studying attacking the ball. It's one of those things where yard to the left, yard to the right, it's either saved or cleared off the line. It's these fine margins, isn't it? The goalkeeper, instead of diving across to try and cut the cross out, what if he just stays in his line, turns out, waits for the shot to come in, and your centre half's cleared it? You know, it's split-second decisions. I mean, I think he did right to dive for it, but if he didn't, it's cleared out. For me, the third goal was the one. I wasn't too bothered about the first and second, but the third goal, it's a straight ball between 2 centre-halves, and that was just, it was weak. It was awful. And it, like Nichols he was in between, and it just looked horrendous, didn't it? And I think that was the most worrying sign, that it was too easy. But you can see the confidence just drained. The confidence just drained out of him, and it's going to take something. It's going to take some strong characters to try and bring it round and win it round, and follow this manager and try and be a lot more resilient defensively. But my concern was the again, we talk about nothing changing. It's not going to change in a week, but our quality going forward, there's no possession, there's no link-up play, there's nothing. That's what worries me the most. I think defensively, I think we'll be okay. That's putting it out there. I know it's a bit, but I think defensively we'll be okay. I think it's what's going on in front that's the biggest concern.
Yeah, we've got nothing, have we, moving forward? That was the thing, especially when he made quite a big thing post-match about having so many attacking players on the field. But apart from the corner, which Tom Lees heads in, we've created absolutely nothing, really, have we? That's the disappointing thing.
First 25 minutes, there were a couple of players where I totally forgot they were playing.
Well, we'll come to a couple of players.
So I was going to say about going forward, you don't mind that if you come away with a 0-0 because it gives you something to build on. But because we've lost 3-0, then you start looking at what happened going forward, and there were no. So you've knackered yourself in both ends of the field there, because you've been crap at back and you've created no going forward. So you can. If you come away with 0, you can say, yeah, but we weren't really trying to get up forward because we wanted to get a point and we wanted to have something to build on, and you can kind of make it a positive that you've not really done out going forward because you were so good in defence. But because you've been so awful in defence, what you haven't got a get out card for that lack of creativity going forward.
But Paul's like, it's one of those as a defender, especially if that ball keeps coming towards, you know what you're going to get from Andy Carroll and that Zhao up front. It's going to be tin-hats, it's going to be loads of battling, and it's, at times they did really well. They were physical, Andy Carroll on the floor all the time, brilliant. It started off brilliant, but if you're constantly defending, you're constantly having to fill gaps in, then you're gonna get found out. And to be fair, that with John Russell not getting across, we'd seen that when we played a 3 in the middle. He never follows that. He never follows a runner into the corner. It's a late kind of movement into the corner. Well, if that's gonna happen, if you're constantly defending, someone's gonna make a mistake at some point. And that was key. And like I say, you can't just. It's a collective, isn't it? It really is a collective.
I was just saying
Jonny.
before we, yeah, I was going to say, we were just saying before we went live that I've always backed this squad. I've always thought that this squad was better than where it sat in the league. I thought someone, either Schofield could turn it round, or was given the time to turn it round, or a new man came in. I thought they've got enough to work with here to kind of push on and get this team to mid-table. Develop some of the younger players, use some of the older players to kind of help do that. And I thought really we sat below where we were, but I know it's one game. It's isolated as one game, but from watching the quality in that Reading game, it was just so poor. And like Poz and Phil said, there was just absolutely nothing. You look at that Reading team. I know they're doing well. And a few people slated us, and we were doing well last season. So it won't last. I'm not going to sit here and do that to Reading, but their midfield of like Hendrick, Hoyler, Hutchinson. They're all 31, 32, 33. Yeah, good careers, but they're knocking around in and out, giving goals. Round the corners, and like that shouldn't be happening. They're not. We had a few other pros last year that probably played above their kind of benchmark for their career. But then that Reading team, it is a team, but it shouldn't be that much better than what we've got on the pitch. I'm not saying we should be beating teams like Reading. That's not the angle I'm going at. But sometimes it looked like there was different divisions between what we could do when we had the ball and when we tried to attack and make something, or just get some passes in the final third, or maybe just do a combination. There was absolutely nothing. And it looked like at some points they were a step up. They're actually a level up than us. And that's what really worried me, because, they're doing all right, but teams have put 3 or 4 past them this season, and you can see why. And we just looked like doing nothing. It's the first time I'm a little bit worried that actually, maybe I've been a bit naive, but actually is there enough quality in this team? Because at the moment, whether it's just like Phil said, draining confidence, that sapped a bit of quality and a bit of talent out of a few players, whether it's a bit of drive and motivation, I don't know. But yeah, from that 90 minutes of football where we just created absolutely nothing, it is really worrying. And maybe there is a bit of lack of quality. Maybe something does need to change, or I don't know. But yeah, I am somewhat concerned for the first time this season, really.
Yeah, I'm concerned as well. And we'll move on to some players, and I think we'll correct Pause, because I think he must have switched off before the end, because we did score at the end, Pause. It was 3-1 in the end.
I think I'd gone by that point.
He got home in the car. John Russell, let's throw John Russell in. And I don't mean this to be throwing John Russell to the Wolves kind of thing, because he's one player that's struggled all season, and he seems to be coming in now for a little bit of stick online. Last season he was a big crowd favourite, wasn't he? Big John Russell. Even a guy playing piano, singing the Big John Russell song at one point. Everyone quite likes him. Big smiley face, good character. But he's really struggling, and I think this, Phil, I'll throw this to you, Phil, because young players coming through go through these peaks and troughs. It's like that, isn't it? Before they kind of find a level, don't they, and hit that level. Big John's going through a huge trough at the minute, isn't he? But it doesn't mean that John Russell is rubbish. It doesn't mean that John Russell is going to be playing Vanarama football for the rest of his career. There are ways to come back, aren't they, from things like this? But there are certain things that John Russell needs to do, and I don't think this group of players look particularly fit to me. It's just an observation. John Russell, particularly being one of them. Just let us know, Phil, that there is a way back for a man who was a crowd favourite, isn't there? And this is generally what happens with young players.
It's funny, isn't it? That it's 1 minute someone's absolutely flying, everyone loves them, and next minute we're absolutely slating them. The earliest opportunity is ridiculous. We said last year with John Russell, he was thriving because he had players around him with legs. So they were working hard. They were doing the dog's work, and then he was getting the ball, playing, pinging passes left, right, really confident on the ball. You could fire it into him in little pockets. He kept hold of it. He'd play. That's his strength. He's at Huddersfield Town for a reason. He's not at Chelsea anymore, and there's a reason for that because he doesn't have the legs. And the lad, he is what he is. I wouldn't say he's unfit. I wouldn't say he's not trying hard enough. It's the style of play that John Russell, how he plays. And you've got to utilise him in the right way. We talk about other players, you know, Danny Ward. We've got to get the ball into his feet, you know, instead of trying to play like Jordan Rhodes, etc. These players have got certain skill sets, and if you don't play to the strengths, then they're going to struggle. And playing the two in midfield there for John Russell wasn't helping him at all. It really wasn't helping him. For me personally, you know, I think that's where we got it a little bit wrong. I'd have put Dwayne Halls in the hole again. I'd have put Sorba out wide, etc. He needs legs around him. John Russell needs legs around him. He's not going to be that player. He's not going to be a Kasumu who's going to run around Kamara, all action. He's not going to do that. So the quicker fans, etc., get it out of their heads, the better. Because the poor lad, he's getting slated for performances, but it's not his way of playing. And we brought him into the club. As a club, we brought him in because they obviously see something in him. But he can't do that extra stuff that other players can. So I feel for him a little bit at the moment. But on the flip side of that, he's still going to show his quality, and he isn't performing as well on the ball as what he did do when he first came in last year. And that's unfortunately where you've got to go back to the training ground and work on your specific strengths. So yeah, I do feel for him a little bit at the moment.
Anyone else want to jump in on the Big John debate?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's what we kind of touched on earlier, recognising player strengths and seeing what they've done previously and learning from it. And I think Jonny, he did get a bit better when he moved into a five midfield. He's Reading play a midfield three, so if it's 2-on-2, maybe takes a little bit out of it. But a 3-on-2 midfield, he's already up against it. And like I say, the things that he does do well, the things where he does have strength in his game, he's a confidence part of football. If he's confident, he's got players running around him. He's playing forward passes. That's the thing we really loved. He used to turn a man and always play a forward pass, and he could actually pick out a ball as well. But those moments require someone to be confident in what they're doing. And if he's not having a great game and he's got feeling the pressure and he knows fans are getting on his back a little bit, or he knows, not necessarily getting on his back, but he knows that there's a little bit of murmurs, and if he plays a couple of passes, there's a bit of groans coming, then it makes it harder because he's a young lad, and what he's good at, he's going to have times where it doesn't come off. That was all right last season because he'd play 3 or 4 forward passes, might hit 2 or 3 of them. That's decent percentage for what he's trying to do. But now he's nowhere near that, and there was a couple of passes where it's nowhere near. It gets intercepted. It was out of play. There was one in the Reading game just go straight out of play. I do feel for him because Phil's absolutely right, and it's kind of a good insight from him and his past where we have brought in a player knowing exactly what their skill set is and effective, asking to do something completely different or put out of their comfort zone. So how much of it is it on the player? Yeah, still a decent amount because what his strengths, what he does well, he's still not doing well. So there's that worth looking at. But it's asking someone to not work, and it goes back to what we said right at the start of the season, is the fact that the reason why that's the case is that central midfield position is weak. The players that we are playing, if we're playing Holmes in there, we're playing Radoni in there, playing Andrew in there or Russell, they're all not quite fit for purpose. Really, we've not got the amount of players to play 3 properly, or to bring in a Russell. We've not got a runner who can be like the O'Brien. And it's down to that recruitment, which is kind of you're asking players to come in and do a job, and they're not quite right for it. And unfortunately, they're the ones that are getting the brunt of the stick when it comes from the fans. So, yeah, do feel for them, but it's the bigger picture, and I think Phil's kind of like hit the nail on the head there, really.
Jonny, who would your starting? Would you prefer 3 in midfield or 2?
I prefer 3. I personally think I put Kasumu. Can't really rate him. I'd probably put alongside him either Kamara or Hogg. I probably would have played Hoggy if he were fit. I think they could work well together. And I think I'd like to get Radoni in as like a in there as well, personally. That's what I'd probably look to play. I think you've got a bit of experience. You've got someone who's, mobile in Kasumu, and you've got someone who we're led to believe. And I've seen a bit of. He's got a little bit of quality, a little bit of movement, can play a pass in Radoni. So I'd probably like to play that. But I think if Hoggy's fit on him to make the bench, then I'd play him personally.
I've been impressed with Radoni. I think he carries the ball well.
Yeah.
I think he's a brave kid. He likes to get onto the ball and he's not afraid to run past a couple of players and put his foot in as well. So I've been really impressed with him.
Yeah, and he's another example of a player who's been asked to play out wide when he's not a wide player. So he's again being judged on his performances this season. I think he's done okay, given the background and where he is and where he's come from, etc. But how many minutes has he played in his preferred position? Not many. But you could ask that a lot of players. How many players they played in preferred position? Not many, and that goes to squad balance, which is a bigger picture.
I think with Russell, you definitely need other players in there that can do his running. Our pondering over it, and he's a bit of a luxury player, and he's potentially looking at maybe moving to a 3-5-2 with sort of 3 centre halves, and then putting Russell in there with Kasumu, stroke Hogg, stroke Kamara. One of any of those 3 sort of combinations, just so you've got a little bit of legs there, and Russell could just play in front, and then Radoni just behind a striker. As Radoni is one of your 2 up front, so just a little bit deeper maybe. And then you've got issues there with who do you play as the full backs on either side or the wing backs. But I think that'd give us good options. As in, you could play attacking players or more attacking players out wide, in your own games or games where you think you might get something, and then you can play a more defensive, sort of setup. When you're playing sort of the teams that you're unlikely to get something against, and just try to keep it safe. But I do think that sort of central area, if you've got 3 centre halves, sort of covering edge at 18-yard box, and then 2 just in front in your your more mobile sort of athletic players, if they can break it up and then play it quickly, forward to a Russell or and then you can kind of move it onto Radoni's, and you've got somebody left and maybe somebody right. I think that could work well for Town. I think just sort of shoring up that central area is probably one of the main things that I would be looking to look at. If it means going a little bit more defensively in short term, then kind of so be it. But for me, if you can win that battle on edge of your own 18 stroke, 20, 25 yards out, get it to somebody like Russell who can then pick a pass wide or pick a pass forward, and we can kind of get on counter attack pretty quickly. So I think maybe that's potentially something to have a look at. But if he's not going to set up like that, I do think that Russell needs to be benched, because he can't play in a 2 at all for me.
I think this is the biggest problem, isn't it? Like, we're talking here about formations, and we're still unsure about what the formation we should be playing with the players that we've got. It's still an unknown. Is it 3-5-2? Is it 4-3-3? Is it what is it? What players have we got to suit certain formations? And hopefully the new gaffer is going to come in and have his own ideas and move us forward with the players that he's got.
You're going to set me off, Phil, because we have this conversation, especially me and Pos have this conversation quite a lot in WhatsApp, don't we, about the summer recruitment. And we've said this on the podcast, at the risk of going over old ground again. We've said it on the podcast that the summer recruitment, a lot of it seemed to be going out and picking players that were talented, but their talent would come to fruition in between 12 and 24 months. And the here and now, everything seems a little bit all over the place. And, you look at Jack Radoni, I like him, but his end product and, in the final third's not quite there yet, but it will come. But it's just not quite this level for, doing what you would expect maybe. Kasumu, very good. He's got a lot of injury problems. He's come with injury problems, baggage. We know that. Kamara's got a lot of potential. Hoggy's obviously Hoggy. I think Kamara's a special player. And you look again at some of the other ones we've signed as well. Caden Kessler-Hayden, again, good young loan player, and Betty. But again, potential. And the here and now is a little bit disjointed. I think we've kind of taken our eye off what was needed. We've sold, obviously, Lewis O'Brien and Harry Toffolo, but we had a really good chance to reinvent that midfield and to stop the over-reliance on Lewis O'Brien, because that midfield was so reliant on Lewis O'Brien and the amount of work that he got through his ball recovery, his recoveries, his carries. It was insanely over-reliant on him. And we've now found now we've not got Lewis O'Brien. We don't have all of those things that he brought, and we've not replaced them quite properly in the here and now. Kasumu, I think, will grow into be a very good midfield destroyer. I like him a lot. Kamara is very good. We need to look at the contract. But Sunday, it's very much disjointed, and we're at a risk at the minute this season of really hitting the buffers because we really needed someone to just provide energy in that midfield and a decent sort of routine of passing. And we've not really got it. And at the minute, the jigsaw doesn't quite fit together, I don't think, properly. But it's not far off. But in football, it's not going to come before the World Cup, is it? And we're going to have to sort of muddle our way through there. So we've done John Russell anyway in the midfield, but there's one more player I think that we should probably talk about, and I think we talked about him a little bit last week, and that's Sorba Thomas. Sorba, still the target for the Boo Boys, unfortunately. He's the David Cowling of the 2020s. Some of our older listeners will understand that. Good set piece for the goal in the last minute. Got himself in a couple of good positions. Didn't look so great up front, but again, I don't think you can really say that he's not particularly working hard. I still think he's working hard, Sorba. There's a lot of frustration, isn't there? We can see in his game. He was doing well last year. This year, it's not clicking. You can see it's getting to him. He's frustrated. He's getting booked for dissent. There's some silly free kicks he's giving away. Discipline again has gone a little bit awry. But I think, this is sometimes, and I said this before you came on. You stuck up for him a little bit online, and and one thing that made me slightly chuckle was someone said he was your dance partner, which I quite enjoyed, to be honest, on the side. And Sorba's a player, I think, who needs to, he's a strange character, isn't he? He's well, not strange, but he's a character who I think needs the arm around him and needs the love, doesn't he? And the stick that he's getting, a lot of it is abuse online that he's getting directed at him, hasn't helped him. I think his head's gone from it a lot, and I think Town fans have a role to play in trying to get Sorba Thomas back. The club have a lot to play, but most of all, Sorba Thomas has got a role to play. But also, throwing that in, I don't think his performances are quite as tragic as what some are making out either.
No, mate, it's I don't know why we do this at Huddersfield Town. We seem to. Phil said it earlier. You 1 minute you're an absolute hero, next minute you're crap and you're sold. I think Sorba Thomas has probably been a little bit of a victim of his own success as of last season. He did so well last year that people expected that to follow on. Still a young player, still learning. You've said, Matt, young players, peaks and troughs. He's just going through a trough at the moment. You've got, put yourself in his shoes. You've had such a good season. You've probably seen 2 or 3 players leave the club that you would maybe hoping were going to stay to build on last year. You've probably seen the manager who got the best out of you disappear. It's World Cup year coming up. He's probably thinking about his place in that Wales squad. If I'm playing in a team that's struggling, is that in jeopardy? So there's probably a lot more going on than just the 90 minutes worth of football. As you say, Matt, look at his. I know stats don't always paint the true picture, but he's one of his most creative players still. Bearing in mind he's playing on left-hand side rather than the right, where he favours. I do take those stats with a pinch of salt because I think sometimes you see stuff like, he's put the most crosses in. Well, you've got to have a look at those crosses because if they're not getting anywhere near the target, then they're not good crosses, are they? So it's kind of a bit of a mute point. But he got an assist yesterday, another great corner. And sometimes players like that can be almost trying too hard. I don't think the dissent thing does him any favours. He got booked at half time for a kicking off. He got booked on Saturday for kicking off, and he just needs to channel that frustration a little bit better. But if I was Sorba Thomas, I can see why he's frustrated. We've come third in league, and he's buzzing, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 players leave. They're not really replaced, and he must be thinking, where does my future lie? I've had such a good season. I potentially had offers to go elsewhere. You don't know, do you? And now he's kind of sitting there thinking, "Is the club taking a step back?" And you're not always 100% sure what's going on behind the scenes with stuff. People have called him out online for things that have potentially happened a long time ago. That it's only just decided to come public knowledge since Huddersfield Town have had a bad run of form, which again is pathetic, really, from those fans that are outing him for whatever he may or may not have done. And yeah, I fully agree with you, Matt. He comes across, I don't know the fella, but I get the feeling that if you shout and ball at Sorba Thomas, it's going to do no good whatsoever. He needs that arm around him. He needs bigging up, and that's where the coaching staff have got a big part to play because we've talked about lack of creativity at Huddersfield Town, and he's actually one that can create. Yes, you know what town fans are like. We jump from hot to cold to Pele to bloody dog and duck style standard. Don't we? As players can have one bad game and that's it. And I think he's just feeling the brunt of it at the moment. There's a lot of frustrated people at Huddersfield Town with everything that's going on, and for some reason, Thomas seems to be the man who's taking the brunt of it. Which there's players out there making ridiculously more mistakes and playing ridiculously worse than Thomas, but because he was so good last season, he's almost put himself in the firing line, it's a shame, really. I mean, there was a video of him yesterday, and he kind of just walked across to away fans and just kind of stood, which I thought were really strange, but he's obviously done that for a reason, and maybe he wanted to hear what people were saying. I don't know, but I just found that really strange how he kind of came across. Yet everybody's hurling abuse at him, and he just kind of stood there. I didn't really get that, Is he fronting up to that bad performance, or some people said he was taking the piss? So, I suppose it depends on what your mentality is and how you feel about him as to what you think about him. I just thought that were quite strange, if it were me, come over, give a little clap and kind of walk away, but he kind of stood there almost wanting the limelight, maybe. I don't know. That just seemed a little bit strange. But overall, I do think it is the fans' job to try and get behind not just him but everybody else. We've all got our opinions. We have it on here. We'll say players are this and players are that. But once that first whistle goes, especially when you're in stadium, you've almost got a responsibility to try and back these players, because people talk about being in together in a promotion fight. I'm sure Phil will know what it's like when you're struggling. You need the fans behind you as much as you can.
I think sometimes, especially like social media in this day and age, you tend to get someone somehow starts something, and it seems to like snowball. It seems to be Thomas and his performances and not playing, or he's got a bad attitude, or he's sulking, all this kind of stuff. And some of the stuff we've seen over the last 2-3 weeks on Twitter and everything about it, it's just absolutely unbelievable. Like, people say, get out of my club, he's not trying, he's not doing this. So there's one picture where he's just sat on the bench. He's just sat watching the game, and I sit right next to the players in what I call Lawrence Batley. And all the players just sat there kind of like just chilling. They're watching the game, but they're just relaxed. They're not really thinking about what they're looking like. The camera, they're sat on the bench, and picture him, and it's like, look at his attitude. It's like he's just sat there. I think sometimes people just get in a bit of it almost becomes fashionable. He's like the fashionable person to have a go at. Now, if it's the case of his football, he's not kind of playing good enough or not playing how he played last season, then okay, there's ways to, if you want to have a go, if you want to kind of call people out, then okay. I personally think it helps, but fair enough. But I think sometimes it's not necessarily warranted. Like, if you look at all the players that are in that team, he's by far not the worst player, and I don't understand why he's being singled out. Maybe it's like he says, victim of his own success. If you look at chance creation so far in the Championship, and I mean, I don't know how chance creation stats are made up, but it won't just be the fact someone's put a cross and it's sailed over. It's an actual chance. He's top, like he's ahead of Jed Wallace. He's ahead of Elias Chair, so he's obviously doing something right. I think he's had a poor start. I think he's got better. I don't think he was the worst player against Reading, and I think Pos was at the nailhead where actually he's still trying. He still will run. He still will give 110%, and yeah, he might need to just have a look at the way he has a little bit of a go at himself, or the way he might have, I mean, in regards to like dissent and stuff, but he's not necessarily having a go at anyone else. He might just want to go at himself. And I think some people forget that he's only a 23-year-old lad. And I think sometimes people think of footballers, they should do this, should do that, they shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. There should be this person who never makes a mistake. And sometimes you can have a bit of a tough time, and you need a bit of help, you need a bit of support, and ultimately, everyone on this podcast, everyone on the ground wants the same thing. I think having a go at someone actually, do you know what I mean, doing it in a way where it's actually nasty, it's actually mean, it's bullying, doesn't help anyone. And someone who stood there and is getting hurled abuse at, a 23-year-old lad who's, do you know what I mean, is trying his best and is do you know what I mean, trying to do good for your football club, doesn't help. And it's a strange mentality I think people have got if they think that's the way to encourage someone who they want to do well. So I think it's a shame. I know it's only individuals, but it's a shame that people do that. And I don't quite understand why it's that. Personally, I don't quite understand why it's at Sorba Thomas. I don't know why it started to be him. Seems to be the scapegoat, but it's a shame because he's a young lad. I think he's also quite new in his career. I think January is only in January. He's only been at the club for 2 years. He's come from non-league. He's not been conditioned into professional football like some other players are at the club as well. So he probably might need a bit more of an arm around him. He might need a bit more support. I think fans might need to just let off him a bit and recognise that he's a 23-year-old lad who's only 2 years into his footballing career. So give the lad a bit of a break. Come on, and he might actually then get back to where he was. I don't think he's doing horrendously anyway compared to some other people in the football club. They might need a bit more of a rocket up their arse, to be honest. So, yeah, not just sticking up for him for the sake of it, but personally, I think he's been a bit of a victim for stuff I don't think is necessarily warranted.
Yeah, I agree. You've run me round, Jonny. You've run me round. But, honestly, it's one of those, isn't it? I know why the fans are having to go at him because of his body language and because of his attitude. So last game he went over and started giving it to Reading fans. He said a few things on social media, etc. His body language at times has been a little bit crap. And what do we want to do as fans when things aren't going well? We want to start blaming someone. So let's blame the manager, and then let's blame the player who looks like he doesn't give a toss and he's not trying hard, right? Because he's showing it. His body language is clear to see. That's why the fans are doing it. It's nothing about you've said there. His performances have been okay this season. Not been amazing, okay, but they've been okay. But it's just an easy target. He really is an easy target. And Jonny, I never really thought about that. But you're right. He's played 2 years of playing in front of like decent crowds. You're in the limelight. You're playing on Sky Sports most weeks, and you're in that big picture. He's playing for Wales. He's got this name for himself, and everybody knows Sorba Thomas. So all of a sudden it can get a little bit, and maybe he can get a bit ahead of his station, and he needs pulling back down to ground. But I think that on Saturday with a fan who was waving money at him and saying what he was saying, whatever he was saying, because I have no idea what he was bloody saying or what he was trying to say. That's not helping anybody. That ain't helping our club by you trying to make one of our players feel bad for a performance there when it's a collective performance. So whether that fellow or, well done, because what's going to happen is if Sorba Thomas has seen you behave that way, that's going to make him feel even worse. And his confidence is going to get even worse because he feels like he's not wanted by the club, the fans. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous behaviour. It really is, and I can't get my head around how many fans will shout at the players. The players aren't going to go out and perform rubbish on purpose unless they're absolutely deluded. Because what happens is if you play rubbish, you don't get picked. If you carry on playing rubbish, you get sacked out of your club. Sorba Thomas don't play well this year. He ain't going to the World Cup, so he's going to have to. I just think it's crazy. I really do.
One thing to quickly add on. I don't know. I didn't know asked it in his press conference. The one pre-Reading, but someone alluded to the fact Sorba Thomas and Jamie's not had a fantastic start season, etc. And Fotheringham quite quickly just goes. I can't remember what the exact quote is, but it's quite short. Something along the lines of he goes, "Thomas will help me massively at this club."
He goes, he's going to be massive for us, didn't he?
Yeah. Hopefully he can do that and get him arm around him and help him pull the right direction.
You said when you said before about we talked about like the video for the training and the gaffer were talking to the players and they're in a little huddle. If anyone wants to look back at it, look at Sorba Thomas. You tell me that's a player that don't want to play football and get better. You look back at that little huddle that they had with the attacking players, and you look at Sorba Thomas. I looked at it straight away. You look at his face and you look at his concentration and how much he was listening to gaffer. And anybody who thinks that Sorba Thomas isn't trying hard or don't want to do well for this club, look back at that clip because you're totally wrong. Absolutely, totally wrong. His problem is sometimes he's just a big baby and it's all this and that. He needs to just get his head down. Someone needs to get hold of him, get your head down, do what you're good at. Simple as that.
Yeah, what I will say about the fans at Reading is a shite place to go to. It's a rubbish place to go to as a football fan. It takes ages to get there. It takes ages to get home. And when your team play absolutely terrible, it's frustrating. I was angry watching it on iFollow at home. I've never abused any players, never sworn at them. I don't. It's not something I get personally. I don't get it. I don't think it helps. Like Phil, I agree with what Phil's saying, but I do understand when people lose it, when people get angry and vent. And it's part of football to a point, isn't it? To sort of let it go. And I think sometimes when players don't play particularly well, sometimes you feel as a fan that you need to hold them to account to a certain level, and that's okay if it's within context.
Now, though,
yeah, it's okay if it's in context, though, Phil. Yeah,
but everybody wants to blame someone. It's never anyone's fault. Everyone wants to try. And
yeah,
blame
no.
someone.
Let me finish it because I don't want to sort of make it seem like I'm supporting that. But what I wanted to say was, before I'm completely derailed now. I can't remember what we're going to say. But cheers.
You've got
But
in his
what I'd
head.
say is
You've got in his head.
that's part of it. We always say as fans, you hold the club to account, don't you, on certain things, and that's fine. But there are ways to do that. There are ways to get your point across, and there are things to say. I've seen what some of the fans were saying to him, and it's not right. I know someone who was in the away end at Reading, and he said there's a little bit more to it than that with the video, and I trust what he said. You know, he said Sorba was a little bit more confrontational than it came across. I can't say for sure whether that's the case or not because I've not seen it, but there seems to be a little bit more to it than that video, and I do understand fans who do want to vent the spleen a little bit because we all let steam off in a certain way, and maybe Sorba Thomas shouldn't have put himself in that situation. Maybe he should have gone over, quick applause, run around and go if he's going to get stick. So I don't think that's all on the fans per se, but you can't stand and froth at the mouth and say you effing C and come out with all the abuse like that. It's just not, like Phil's just mentioned, society. It's not in a modern society. You just shouldn't do that. I know people pay money and they think it entitles them to opinions. It does, and choices, but it doesn't entitle you to abuse another human being at the end of the day. But I do understand the frustration because I was pretty frustrated at home. But Pos, you look like you want to say something on that as well.
I was going to say, Matt, I'll tell you now, I'll tell anybody listening now, these players turn up at that stadium about 1 o'clock. Between 1 o'clock and 1:30, they park their cars in that car park behind South Stand. If anyone's got a problem and they want to shout and ball at a footballer, I suggest to go do it down there to the face. And that's not to go and have a fight or kick off. I don't like that. If these
You're
people
going to start handing out addresses in a minute. Sorba Thomas lives at this address. If you want to have a go,
One o'clock in the car park.
What are you doing to
I'll see you
him?
outside in car park. 1 o'clock.
These people are quite happy to shout it. And Phil, playing in goal, you must have heard some right stuff shouted at players from behind a barrier. If you feel that's wrongly, go and have a proper chat about it. I understand what you say, Matt, because I'm quite happy to stand up and shout and ball and get that's how some people are. Whether it's right or wrong and heat at the moment and all that sort of stuff. But as you said, you get frustrated at football and you do say stuff that you probably wouldn't do in a rational environment.
Beer is also a factor, isn't it?
That's the passion of football. But cold light of day. Not just that fella, I'll speak for myself. I've stood up and bollocked players and told them that they were shite because they'd messed them up. And it's frustrating because sometimes I think it's frustrating because that they're better than what they're showing at the moment. So it's frustrating from that point of view. It's just frustrations about a lot of things all at once. And sometimes these people do take the brunt. He might have had an argument with his wife before he set off. You don't know, do you? All sorts of stuff come out of football that you don't normally say, but I don't think it does any good. But in the heat of the moment, as you say, it's understandable. But, if these people feel so strongly about it that's what they're going to do, then do it in a more civilized way. Go down and have a chat, see what's going on. Do it that way because I guarantee they won't.
It's a very English football fan approach, really. Talking like Hertha Berlin, obviously, where Mark Fotheringham was before. I actually didn't realise this, but I've actually watched. I watched the Hertha Berlin game back end of last season. He was obviously assistant. Didn't realise at the time. Didn't know who he was. But that was a team that was massive. 70,000 seat stadium, massive following, and they're just like 100% behind. They were awful and they lost and they almost went down, which was massive for a team like Hertha Berlin. But just complete support, 100% backing, chanting, everything. It's a shame that. I know we're getting on a bigger topic here, but it's a shame that English football, you have a couple of bad results and the fans just completely turn. It's such a hostile environment. And I've never done it, but Phil has. But I wouldn't like to do that. I wouldn't like to go out and just think the pressure. If you make the first pass goes, you mess up. That's it. And you've got 90 minutes thinking, what about the next pass? Oh, I've done it. And what about what's going to happen now at half time? I don't know what's going to come out. Do you mean? I think people forget. Like you say, sudden stand and that kind of mentality where, it's us and them and you've paid a ticket. And I'm sure people act on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday, completely different to how they act 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But it's just recognising that. They're saying, would you shout that to a 23-year-old lad walking out of his car into the ground? You probably wouldn't. If you wouldn't, then just ask yourself why you're doing it in the ground. And it's a bit happy club to say, we should always get behind the players and clap them and Johnny, they tried their eyes. That's not football, is it? But sometimes you just think, I don't know, it's a bit strange. All clubs like this, but we do seem to we do seem to get a little buzz off stick and a little bit of buzz of failure and things not going right. And we're going. It just like I say, it's not a mentality I've got. But it is a little bit of a strange how English football seems to operate like that. It's quite unique across Europe, really.
It's not just Huddersfield, though, is it? Because it makes sense. When you're on social media, and it's brilliant because you're like we always say like, we've always got some of these fans that behave like this, and then next club they're like, we always have fans that behave like this, and there's always someone in there. Do you know what I mean? And it's and like we say, like fair play. We've had a bit of a rant, and people have their own opinions, don't they? But at the end of the day, if you've got you're supporting your club, and if you're upsetting your players, if you're having to go at your players, and Matt, you're right. You know, if he's done something and he's riled them up, then fair dues. But it's only going to go one way, innit? Do you know what I mean? And your players,
it's not. It doesn't help, does it? Like you say, you're right. It just doesn't help, does it? We're bottom of the league, pretty much. And the last thing you want is like the players and the fans to be against each other as well. It all needs to come together as one, doesn't it, to push us up? And it's frustrating. But the thing is, the fans need the players and the players need the fans. It works two ways, doesn't it? You know, if the fans have gone there and given everything, and the players don't give anything on the pitch, I kind of think the fans are quite right to let them know in a civilized way. But. Which obviously is very difficult, isn't it, in football circles?
Let's flip it, though. Like, imagine, so like Town are playing, and to be fair, they've grafted and they've lost 1-0, and there's a couple of boos from terraces, and there's not much singing. How would fans feel if players turned around and started going, like, what? Come on, any danger? You a lot singing, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing?
I do that to pause all the time, don't I? And cancel message him halfway through the game. We're singing shit house.
You know, you're right. It's
no, I think. Hey, mate, I'd be up for that. I'd be up for it.
The crowd are massive for those players. You have no idea how big, especially in that ground down there. They're honestly, they're absolutely massive for the players.
I remember that season under Jacko when we were struggling, and it's a totally different mentality within a fan base from then to now. And whether that's just the way that the modern world is, and everyone seems a little bit more entitled to everything now than what they did back then. But I remember going back, and there were only 8,000 and 10,000 there sometimes, and everybody went in, and everybody were wanting us to survive. And there were odd bits of grumbling, and you'd have a defeat and they might get booed off or whatever. But next match he came back and it had that right. We're going to get 3 points today. Crowd were with him, and some of the stuff that I get shouted from crowd from behind me is ridiculous. In fact, my little lad, Jacko, telling you, one time he turned around to someone in last home game, 3 rows back, he just berated Town all the way through. He just turned around and, without even any prompt from me, he said, "If you don't like watching Town, why do you even come? Because all they're doing is slag them off." And I thought, why are you coming? What's the point? If you're just going to come,
kids are awesome at delivering truth bombs, aren't they?
You know what I mean? Yeah, they are. Just turn around, like, what's the point? And
get him on here.
It's almost like someone's waiting for something to go wrong just because it gives them an opportunity to call someone a whatever.
They were booed. They were booed 3 or 4, maybe 5 times last season. We finished third and got to the playoff final, and the season was predicted to go down, and they got booed 4 or 5 times at half time. You just think it's absolute madness. But like I say, it's a society thing. It's not just Huddersfield Town.
It's a modern thing. I think we should move it on a little bit as well because we're delaying
like
on this.
Like a disease, that boo. Once one person starts, everyone's like, "Ooh."
Like a Mexican.
What are we booing for? What are we booing for?
Like a ghost, that Phil. Right, let's read out some comments on YouTube. So thanks to all of you for joining us online. If you guys could, this is my beggy moment, if you guys could hit the thumbs up and the like button, that'd be fantastic because it just puts the podcast under more eyes of more people so that we appear on specific timelines, etc. for Huddersfield Town, which would be great. So let's go through some of the comments. Andrew Moore says, I could see some pressing for the first 20 minutes and the confidence of a team with a plan that was dashed after the first goal went in. He needs time for sure. I don't think we lack talent, just belief. Leo says a disjointed performance and a lack of belief in their ability. Midfield gave the ball away far too many times and individual errors cost us in defence. Dominic says, I think we were playing one of the informed teams in the division with a confidence depleted team and a new manager. I really think we need to give the new gaffer time. People already digging him out. Andy the K-Maker K says we're missing Phil's mate Matty P and the Rolls-Royce defender that was Colwell at the back. Defence is where we build from, and it's out of form as a unit of 5. Terry792 says, evening chap, shocking defending, costing us. I don't see Mbete being any better than Romani Edmonds-Green. Gary Wilkinson says, I agree, Kamara should have started. Surely not featuring hits his confidence and immediately puts some seeds of doubt in the new coach. And then Terry72 says, I said on Twitter, since Hef became defensive coach, we've looked crap at the back. Gary Wilkinson says, we've got a defensive coach. John Shaw says, Phil's just stated Russell has no legs. Totally agree. But where's the midfield recruitment in the summer to get them? Kasumu injury prone and at present not up to it. And Radoni in and out. The formation discussion is a sorry indictment on the Sunderland recruitment and Danny Schofield's tinkering. I'm afraid, hopefully, Mark Fotheringham can find a system that suits quickly, because if not, we will be soon cut adrift. And Leo just said, Sorba Thomas cupping Reading fans when we scored at the end. Cupping Reading fans? That's a bit dodgy, is that, Lee? When we scored at the end, a little bit embarrassing. Yeah, Sorba's getting a lot of stick, and I don't think he knows how to handle what he's getting at the minute or how to let it slide. Hopefully, he learns from that. And we did say, is the stick Sorba getting fair? Yes or no? 25% said yes, and 75% no from our poll. So thank you to you guys for doing that. No one's clicked the like button yet. Shame on you all. But moving on. Right, guys. So give me just a second. Right. So it's time to let you boys in on a little secret. Ooh. So you guys don't know, but we were given special unfettered access to record the process behind the appointment of Mark Fotheringham. Our cameras were allowed behind the scenes, and I'm really happy to bring you some footage that we were allowed to record from the appointment.
Next single man. Let the crank see the shaft. Single man, reveal yourself.
Hi ladies, I'm Lee and I'm from Huddersfield Town.
Pleasure to meet you. Lee from
Huddersfield.
Girls, are you turned on or turned off? Whoa! Just wait there a minute, Lee. Listen, forget this lot. You're getting something much better. Get that moustache wax over here, son, and get a bit of paddy love. Come on, Lee. Give it up for everyone.
Love that wee man.
Going on.
Nobody left allowed, didn't they?
Right, chaps. So yes, so unfortunately, nobody left that. So unfortunately, you've just seen that. But yes, so our cameras were allowed access, and Mark Fotheringham was the man chosen by Lee Bromby. So just going to wrap up the podcast really for this week. And post-match, Mark Fotheringham was quite positive, wasn't he, guys, in what he said? I don't know if some of that's a little bit of false bravado maybe. And then he mentioned Jurgen Klinsmann might be coming to watch a Huddersfield Town game, which would be interesting. What did you make of his post-match comments, how he thought we dominated the play, especially in the second half? I kind of looked at that and I thought Reading were quite happy to sit in and just defend the 2-0 and then the 3-0 without really needing to take the game to us. But anything positive from the game itself? I know I mentioned Ben Jackson as a positive, and there was a lovely touch in the second half from Ben Jackson, which was eye-catching. But what did you guys make of the post-match, and was there anything positive for you in the 90 minutes?
I'll just sum it up quickly. It just seemed to be one of those typical managerial interviews where you go out and try to be positive as possible. He's not going to really come out, is he, and lambast his players after the first match. So I think it was just one of those where he's tried to find anything that he could to hang his hat on that went reasonably well. You know, yeah, we had a bit more possession, but we're Reading even bothered, as you say, Matt, probably not happy for us to let us have it. we probably had a little bit more in the game, but we were 2-0 down. So if we didn't, then that'd be even more worrying. So I think he just came out and said what he had to say. Whether or not that were his exact feelings behind closed doors is a different matter. But I don't think it would have done anybody any good for him to come out and start shouting odds and saying that we were crap. Wouldn't do him any good, does it, after his first match to then come out and say that we played, like a bag of spanners. So I think he's just come out and just gone through a generic interview for me. He said what he said, and I won't get too excited either way about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's only been in the job. We got hired officially on Wednesday, took training on Tuesday. One of them days that I travelled down as well. So I think to come out and tear a few players apart, tear a team apart, probably isn't the wisest thing to do. If we continue to play like that, when we have interviews where he's so positive, it might be a little bit of a concern that he's not quite understanding the severity of the issues. But I think it's hard to run anything. It's hard to run anything too much from the performance. It's hard to run anything too much from what he said in his interviews, etc. It's so early doors. I think it's just one of these, time will tell. Like Paul said, I don't think too much to be gained from being negative. He's new into the job, trying to pick up a lot of players, trying to pick up the mood around the place. So by coming out and being positive and picking out some positives in the game, his interview as well, I think is probably the right thing to have done, really.
Yeah, tough, isn't it? I agree with both of you. There's nothing really much to say, is it? It's just like the first interview that he had. He's gonna take a bit of time to understand the players and who he's got, and I think it's one of those where let's give it a month's time and let's see what we're really made of. If we're still not getting results after the month, then hopefully his true colours might come through and he might, name a few old tunes. But it's not, like Paul said, it's not going to help anybody after a game just to call someone out. But for me personally, my thoughts were, I didn't think Reading were great. We weren't great. There were no clear and obvious kind of, well, you're shocking. So it was just a box standard interview at the end, and like I said, give it a good month. What are the fixtures coming up? Who have we got?
Luton Tuesday, Hull Sunday. The next two.
Yeah, Hull.
Luton's a very tough one.
After that.
You've got Rotherham away on 15th. Then we've got Preston at home on the 18th, followed by Middlesbrough away on 22nd, and then right end of month we've got another home game against Millwall. So we've got
good start for him. It's a good start.
Some winnable games there.
Yeah. Got 6 games in October, which is left. So we had 7, so we've lost 1. Let's see where we are at the end of October and see if there's I think that's probably my only concern is if we don't win any of them, we'll be that far adrift.
Well, if we don't win any of them, we've got real problems.
Well, what do you do? You can't sack him then, can you? You've got to give him. You know what I mean? So people say, "Oh, we'll give him this time, we'll give him that." It don't matter. You can go if after 10 games, if we haven't won any, what they're going to do? I mean, I suppose I could sack him, but that'd be insane, wouldn't it? Really.
Well, this is it, and we've spoken about how, what kind of a guy he seems to be and his morals, etc. But we need to go back to it. Really, he's inexperienced as a manager, so it's a gamble.
It's a massive gamble.
It's a massive gamble, but hopefully, the kind of person that he is, because he's come across that way, that might be the key factor in all this, really. So. Who knows?
Yeah, well, he was thrown in the last couple of times in relegation battles at Hertha Berlin and Ingolstadt, and came through one, and the other one they got relegated, but they actually won 6 out of 9 of the remaining games. So I don't think you can do much more than that. I know you wanted to say something, Jonny, but I think we need to read out some of the questions. But
I was just going to say really quickly. I just think Hull are an absolute sinking ship. Preston can't score a goal, and Rotherham lost the manager. So hopefully.
0 points it is.
We should get something from. So fingers crossed. If I'm not just used it.
Right. Some of the questions we got through from social media. Some of them I think we've covered already. So, Dag Barnett says, "I can't believe what I've witnessed since Wembley, and hope Mark Fotheringham comes through because we look in other bands. If the worst happens, it's a long way back." Chris Carter, which is not really a question, but says, "Is the definition of madness truly doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results?" Dag Barnett then mentioned supplementary question about how much it would have taken to retain Carlos Corberán. Truth is, we don't really know. Does the appointment of Mark Fotheringham smell of stubbornness? Is the perception of the fans unimportant? Well, I think you've got to weigh that up, haven't you, against what the club do and how it sort of operates. And I think the club have kind of backed themselves, haven't they, in the way that they operate at a certain level. And they've sort of said, this is the way we do things. We're a developmental club. We bring people in of talent and then we try and harness that talent and then try and push them on to the next level. So part of me did
Is
want...
that just another way of saying that we don't want to spend a lot of money?
Pretty much, yeah. Or trying to make a lot of money in the long run, isn't it? But I think Town could have gone out and got an experienced manager, but what level would this experienced manager be with the money that Huddersfield Town pay? I guess I couldn't sit here and name one confidently. We could have gone out and got, there's no way someone like Sean Dyche is coming. David Wagner didn't want to come. It's not the easiest sell, is it, with the money that Huddersfield pay and offer, which isn't a dig, it's just a fact of life. Dean Smith has mentioned Sorba Thomas about the abuse he's getting. Is there an agenda against Sorba Thomas, which I think we've covered off? But it says, how long can we keep shopping at Aldi but expecting Michelin star results? Dean, Aldi always seems to get top supermarket, doesn't it, in the ratings? So who knows? Huddersfield Town family say, why do we think there was no new manager bounce? We had it under Cheat Show, but yesterday was as flat as it gets. Pause, you have a stat?
Oh, man, I can't remember what it was. Oh, yeah, it was we never had that bounce at Town. I think Simon Grayson were the last managers to win his first match. And I think before that were Lee Clark. And then I think Lee Morris, Ian Ross in 92 or something ridiculous like that. So we never get that new manager bounce. We're the only team in country that never gets that manager bounce. Or hardly ever gets that manager bounce.
We are
Reading are near top of the league. It weren't like it were an easy game yesterday.
No, that's true. Reading are very much like we were last season, where they don't seem to create a lot or do a lot. They're just very clinical, aren't they, and solid. But fair play to them. I had them 24th in the league, so that loss yesterday was a bit of payback for me being an absolute shit. So there we go. Cole Fronchak says 2017 we had Moy, 2022 we had Lewis O'Brien, two of the division's best all-round central midfielders in those respective seasons. Why can't Bromby spot we needed to beef up midfield after losing such quality there? Don't get me started, Colin. I'll keep going on about that every week. Dave Oracle, I don't know if that is because he is the Oracle or whether he works in sequel programming, says Sorba has the pressure of making a World Cup squad taking its toll on his club football. Clearly not the same player, but much has happened. We've kind of covered Sorba, hasn't we? But I don't think the Wales thing's potentially it. You guys, yes or no? Saying Wales thing? Nah.
I just think it's an accumulation of the fact that we're not playing well.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Mark Harrison says, if you were the new head coach, what would be the first thing you would do to get a quick improvement in results? I'd go full Danny Cowley and absolutely ruin every single game just to try and pick up points and make the games as bad as possible. Because that's what Danny Cowley did when he came in. He pretty much went, right, if the ball's in the penalty box, you kick it as far as you can. Just get rid, clear. Everything's safety first. Don't concede a goal. And we ruined games. And then eventually started picking up that 1-0, didn't we? We scored the goal against Stoke, didn't we? Where we won 1-0 at Stoke, and it really sort of went from there. And then things got gradually better. So maybe that's the way. Who knows? Dreams talks about everyone doing the Fotheringham skip, which I think you alluded to a bit earlier, didn't you, Phil, with Mark Fotheringham's dodgy dancing. Phil says it was awful Saturday. Lee Oates is all over the place. He mentions about the team lacking leaders out there, and particularly in midfield. Fullbacks not particularly good. I think I covered the fullbacks. Lack of leaders. We've got Tom Lees at the back. Lee Nichols, you would probably have in your leadership group. Hoggy on the bench. Rhodes and Ward up front. I'm not too sure it lacks leaders. What do you think, Phil?
But the thing is, though, we're talking... Experience can't come just as leaders, though. So, and we've talked about this in terms of some of the players we've got in terms of backbones and stuff, but when the going gets tough, are we stepping up? You know what I mean? We don't know. It's you'd have to ask someone who's in the changing rooms at the moment. That's the only way you're going to find out who the leaders are at the moment in that team, because I can't see any on the field at the moment because it's tough. It's tough out there. It's difficult. So I think you'd have to find out within the club who's the leader in the changing rooms.
Yeah, Chris Moore mentions about Sorba Thomas. Mark says, why does it hurt so much? That's a good question, Mark. Definitely at the minute. Footy Kits for You says, where was Tino? Tino was ill, unfortunately, and might be missing for a couple of weeks. And then we've got Smile a While says he doesn't have any questions because he's still sulking at the minute. And the last two are Johnny L said, do you believe we controlled the second half yesterday? I think we covered that off, Johnny. And then the last one is for HTFC Dukes. He says, not a question, more a comment. Despite zero signs of improvement yesterday, Mark Fotheringham had only a few days on the training pitch. I'd say he needs to be given a chance to put his stamp on things. Ask me again after 5 or 6 more matches, and I think that's probably a decent way to maybe end the podcast, isn't it? So thanks, Phil, for coming back on. Don't be a stranger. Hopefully get you back ASAP. Jonny, hope your young man has a good rest of his birthday, although he's probably asleep, I would hope, by now. Pause. I hope that lunch settles well as well. So cheers, guys. Thanks to everybody online for watching us, and we'll catch you again next week. And single man, reveal yourself.
Next single man. Let the crank see the shaft. Single man, reveal yourself.
Hi, ladies. I'm and I'm from Huddersfield Town.
Pleasure to meet you. Lee from
Huddersfield.
Girls, are you turned on or turned off? Whoa! Just wait there a minute, Lee. Listen, forget this lot. You're getting something much better. Get that moustache wax over here, son, and get a bit of paddy love. Come on, Lee.